Alright, this is Mrs. Clark. Welcome to my video, a review of the Pythagorean theorem. So you'll have this notebook page. We're going to actually cut it right up the middle here and separate it into 2 pages. And then these are going to each go into our notebook on separate pages. First, this one on the left is just a review of what the Pythagorean theorem is. And so it is a relationship of the 3 sides of a right triangle. So over here, I just want you to make note of this 90-degree angle here. And opposite this 90-degree angle, I will always find the side of the triangle that we call the hypotenuse. So let me zoom in a little bit on that for you. So the hypotenuse is always going to be the longest side of your right triangle. It's always opposite the largest angle, which is your 90-degree angle. So I'm going to also make a note here that it is the longest side. So if you're using the Pythagorean theorem, you're finding a missing side, and your hypotenuse does not end up being the largest number, and you're looking at the 3 different sides of the triangle, then you know something is wrong. Or if you get an answer for a leg and it's bigger than the hypotenuse, then you did something wrong. So just to review, there are parts of the right triangle. We have the 2 sides of the right triangle that form the 90-degree angle are called the legs. They are perpendicular to each other, and those are called the legs, and then the longest side that is opposite the 90-degree angle is called the hypotenuse. The relationship between those 3 sides is called the Pythagorean theorem, and this is the way that I teach it. If you take one leg, square it, add it to the other leg, squared, it's going to equal the hypotenuse squared. Most of the time you may have seen this as a squared plus b squared equals c squared. It's the same thing. I just teach it as leg squared plus leg squared equals hip squared because it doesn't matter which one I call a, which one I call b. It just matters that they equal up to the hypotenuse squared. So I like to just call them leg squared and leg squared, but it's the same idea. And that's all I'm going to write on this paper. So you're going to cut it, like I said, cut it right up here, cut them apart so they are on 2 separate pages. And we are going to fill in the other side, which is learning how to find the missing hypotenuse. So here is the page that we're going to focus on now. How do I use the Pythagorean theorem to find a missing hypotenuse? Find the missing side of the triangle below. Be sure to show all of your work. So if I look at the right triangle here, I want to identify which sides are my legs, which side is my hypotenuse, because that's going to help me when I go to set up my equation. So here's my 90-degree angle. Opposite that is going to be my hypotenuse. If you want to use HYP for short, you can do that. So the hypotenuse has a question mark on it. So I don't know the length of the hypotenuse. So when I don't know something, the unknown that I use for a variable for an unknown that I use is x. So I'm going to call this x. Now, if this is the hypotenuse, these 2 sides that form the 90-degree angle are our legs. So one leg is 3 meters, the other leg is 2 meters. Now, why is that important? Because when I go to use my Pythagorean theorem, it's going to help me find this x, this hypotenuse side. I just have to make sure I put the numbers in the right spots. So I'm going to start by writing my formula. Leg squared plus leg squared equals hip squared. Do you have to write this every single time? If you get real good at it, you won't need to write it every single time, but I write it just to make sure I put all the numbers in the right spots. And since it starts with leg squared plus leg squared, I can start with 3 as this leg, or I can start with 2 as this leg. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to choose to do 3. 3 squared plus the other leg squared, which is 2 squared, equals hip squared, which I marked as x, so I'm going to put x squared. Now, just like the formula says, I need to square each of these numbers, and then I need to add them together. So to square 3 means 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 2 times 2 is 4. I'm going to bring down my equal sign. I'm going to bring down my x squared. I haven't done anything with those yet. So all I did so far is square each of the numbers. 3 times 3, 2 times 2. The next thing I have to do is x squared is going to be equal to 9 plus 4. So I'm going to just add those together and get 13. So x squared is equal to 13. But I want x, not x squared. So I need to undo this squared here. And the way I'm going to do that is by taking a square root. X is going to equal the square root of 13. Now, how do I find the square root of 13? Well, you need your calculator for that. So let me grab my calculator. I have to show you how to do this in the calculator if you don't remember from when we did distance formula. Or if you've never used this calculator to find a square root. So in order to find the square root, you can't do that in your head. It's an operation that the calculator can do for you. There's an algorithm in the calculator that will do it for you. You need a calculator. We can't get the exact number without the calculator. So if you'll notice on the calculator, there's an x squared button right here, and right behind it in blue, you'll see this little square root. So I have to press the blue button and then this x squared button, and then it's going to give me the square root in the calculator. I'm going to type in 13. I'm going to hit enter, and here's what it's going to be. 3.605551275. Now, there's more decimals that don't show up here in the calculator, but that's what I've got right now. So my rounding rule for our class is to always do 2 decimal places. So I have to decide, if I chop this off at 3.60, does it say 3.60, or do I have to round it up to 3.61? So I'm going to look at this number after the 0, and since it's a 5, the 5 is going to tell this 60 to round up to a 61. If it was a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, then I would keep it a 3.60. So because of this 5 in the third decimal place, I have to round this up to 3.61. So 3.61 is approximately what x is. So I'm going to use a little squiggly equal sign. It's not exactly equal to x. It's approximately 3.61. So you rounded it off. It's about 3.61 meters. And it is important that we put our label of meters on here, especially when we get to our word problems. So we want to make sure we're attaching our units of measurement to our answers. So that's how I use Pythagorean theorem to help me find a missing hypotenuse. The next piece that we're going to look at is how do I use Pythagorean theorem to help me find a missing leg. It's going to be very similar. We're going to substitute numbers in like we just did, and we're going to solve, but the steps might be slightly different. So let's look at how that looks. You're going to take this other paper that you have. It's a double paper again. And let me show you, I made a little mess up here, if you happen to get one of these copies. Notice it says find a missing leg and perimeter and area. The other side happens to be the pages that we just did. This was just an error. I copied it on the back, so we don't need either of these sides. So this is where you're going to put your glue on this side and this side, because we just did those same 2 sides on the other paper. We want these sides. You're going to cut it in half right here, and they're going to go in to your notebook on each individual side. So we're going to start with the find a missing leg. Alright, so finding a missing leg, very much like finding a missing hypotenuse. First, we're going to identify which ones are the legs, which one's the hypotenuse. So here's my 90-degree angle, staring across the triangle at this 25-meter side. That's going to be my hypotenuse. This time, I know that the hypotenuse is 25. Last time, it had a question mark. I didn't know it. If that's the hypotenuse, the 25, that means this side down here is a leg, and this one over here is also a leg. One of my legs is 7. The other leg is question mark, so I'm going to actually make it an x. When I go to write out my Pythagorean theorem, leg squared plus leg squared equals hip squared. This is why I always write it. One leg is 7, so 7 squared, plus the other leg is x squared, equals hip, which is 25 squared. So just like before, we wrote the formula, we substituted everything in where it goes. Now, if you wanted to put x squared plus 7 squared, that would be okay. It's the same thing. Next thing I do is I square the numbers that can be squared. So 7 squared is 7 times 7, which is 49. Plus x squared, so I can't do anything with that yet, equals 25 times 25. So if you do that in your calculator, 25 times 25 is 625. So 49 plus x squared equals 625. Now, very much like the one we just did, we're trying to get x by itself. If I look quickly back to the one we just did, the x was already by itself. It was equal to a number. This time, I don't have the x squared equal to a number. The x squared has a 49 on the same side as it. So I need to get rid of this 49 so that it's just x squared equals a number. So it's a positive 49, so I need to subtract it, take it away from both sides, so that these cancel out and become 0. The x squared is by itself, and 625 minus 49 is 576. So x squared is equal to 576. Now I don't want x squared, I want x. So I'm going to have to do x is equal to the square root of 576. Go to my calculator, type in second square root 576. I get 24. It's a whole number, so I don't need to use the squiggly equal sign. X equals 24 meters. There's our answer. So that's how I used Pythagorean theorem to find a missing leg. This time my leg was 24 meters. Our last piece is to try to connect everything that we just did and extend our knowledge to use the idea of Pythagorean theorem in finding a missing side in a right triangle. And I'm going to do that by extending that idea to find the perimeter and the area. So you may not have done perimeter or area in a while. So we're going to review it here just briefly, enough so that you can do what we're looking for you to be able to do. And so first let's talk about what perimeter is. I'm going to make a note of perimeter down here. So perimeter, imagine you're a track star. This is your triangular track that you're running around. Perimeter is looking for the distance that you run all the way around the outside of the track. So I would need to add up 8 and 17 and whatever this is in order to find the perimeter. But I don't know this. If I want to find the perimeter, it's going to be equal to the distance around the outside of the shape. I'm going to make a note of that. Distance around the outside. So if you're thinking of the triangle, it's going to be this length plus this length plus this length all the way around. So I just need to find these 3 lengths and I need to add them all up. Alright, so perimeter is the distance all the way around the figure. Now, I can know right now that my perimeter is going to be 17 plus 8 plus whatever that is. So 17 plus 8 plus whatever that is. Well, I got to find this one before I can finish. So how do I find this? Well, I need to figure out whether it's a leg or a hypotenuse. So here's my 90-degree angle, which means 17 is my hypotenuse, which means this one that I don't know is a leg. This one I do know is 8 is also a leg. But I can use Pythagorean theorem with this 8 and the 17 to figure out what the other leg is. So let's do that up here. Leg squared plus leg squared equals hip squared. So one leg is x, so x squared, plus the other leg, which is 8 squared, equals hip squared, which is 17, so 17 squared. So x squared plus 8 times 8, which is 64, equals 17 times 17, which is 289. Is the x squared by itself? No, it's not. It has a 64 here. How do I get rid of it? I take it away. Take it away from both sides to keep it balanced. X squared, those are going to cancel out, equals 289 minus 64, which is 225. How do I figure out x? I take the square root of 225, type that in my calculator. X equals 15 inches. So why did I want that? I want to know the length of this side so I can find the perimeter. 8 plus 17 plus 15. So my perimeter is 17 plus 8 plus 15. So I'm going to do that in the calculator. 17 plus 8 plus 15, and it's 40. So the perimeter here is 40 inches. Now, perimeter is just a distance measurement around, so it's just inches. You could measure it straight with a ruler, straight with a ruler, straight with a ruler, regular inches. The second piece of what we're going to review is how to find the area. So how do I find the area? Well, the area talks about how many square tiles would fit inside of this triangle. So some measurement, imagine you were tiling a floor that is this shape, how many square tiles, 1 by 1 tiles, would fit in there. To find the area, we use a formula. Every shape has an area formula, or a combination of area formulas. Formulas are one of the best gifts you can get when it comes to doing math problems. You just have to know how to use them. So you got to practice substituting numbers in and knowing how to calculate the answer. So here is our area formula for a triangle. Area formula for a triangle is 1/2 times base times height. Well, what do base and height mean? Base and height refer to how tall something is. Height always refers to how tall something is. You go to the doctor, and how do they have you stand? They have you stand tall, straight up, tall against the wall. They have you make a right angle with the wall. So your height is making a right angle with the ground, which is the base. Base and height of a triangle are the two sides that make a right angle. So if you look at our triangle up here, the two sides making a right angle, our height would be this leg, which was 15, and our base would be this 8. So if I want to do base times height, I'm going to do 8 times 15. So in our triangle, we have 8 on the bottom, 15 on the side. 8 is our base, 15 is our height. So the formula tells us to do base times height, but then I have to take a half of that. So let me write this down. Area equals 1/2 times base. Our base we'll call 8. It wouldn't matter if you called it 15 as long as you used both of the right numbers. Times our height, which is 15. So what I need to do is know what 8 times 15 is. So in my calculator, I'm going to do 8 times 15. I get 120. What is a half of 120? 60. So the area of this triangle is 60 square inches. 60 little 1 by 1 square tiles that are 1 inch by 1 inch would fit inside this triangle. Now, how did I do that? Well, there's a couple ways. First, in my calculator, I did 8 times 15. If I want a half of it, I can do it 2 ways. I can divide by 2 to get 60. Or I can do 1/2, if I put it in parentheses, 1/2 times 120 to get 60. Or if I know that 1/2 is 0.5, I can do 0.5 times 120 to get 60. So knowing that a half is 0.5, knowing how to put a half in the calculator is helpful. Knowing that a half just means to divide it by 2, those are 3 different ways that I can figure out the answer to this area problem. First, I do base times height, then I take a half of it. So our area for this triangle is 60 square inches. So go ahead and glue those orange papers into your notebook. Then you have a practice paper where you're going to go through and practice finding missing legs, finding missing hypotenuses, hypoteni, and then also practicing using Pythagorean theorem to find perimeter and area of different triangles. So our entire unit is on right triangles. So every triangle you're going to be looking for where is the hypotenuse as you go ahead and move forward. Thanks for watching.